I see dead people.
Hot shit.
Here's Johnny.
Stop.
We have such sights to show you.
Bring the motherfucking ruckus. Fuck you too.
I was gonna say, yeah, if we're doing like a check of all the things in our surroundings, it's like weed inhaled, drink in hand, invader, man in basement, ignored.
Ignored, barricaded.
Trauma from past, forgotten.
Amazing.
What lengths will we go to forget what was done to us in the past? Boundless lengths.
You don't want to know.
It's real. It's fair.
Alrighty. Where were we with this?
Yeah, if we're doing if we're doing like a quick recap to get us like back in the mindset of what was going on, I feel like what we started with last time, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I feel like we summed up 5
Sorry.
by saying
Too big of a hit.
Paul likes to exposit too much information.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not mad. I actually complained about it a little bit.
Yeah.
He's like, you're reading a scary story. I was like, I mean, yeah, but they're explaining too much to me.
Yeah, there's nothing...
Which is true.
The horror latches on to what's unknown, right? You start explaining something, you know, how the hamburger is made, then suddenly you stop being afraid for the cows.
Exactly. And we had such a strong start in the beginning, but I feel like Paul is just...
When all that you're left with is ominous rules...
Yeah.
Alluding to a yet unseen invader, you're filled with dread. When
freaky.
Someone shows up and just kind of starts explaining all of the like methodology behind the invader, I don't know. I really want this thing to show up and do some damage, which is ironic because part 1 ended with this dude like fucking breaking his leg.
Literally breaking his fucking leg, like real bad too.
But I don't, in my head, it's like it's a partied to the thing. It's not like the thing didn't do it. The narrator, Brandon, did. So I guess, okay, so part 5 was exposition the chapter, and it's Mitch's dad, Paul, just talking way too fucking much, and we're finally seeing what's in the house across the street, and Paul has a fucking roommate that we're assuming is the coat rack, and he's just satiating it. Is that where we're at with the hearing things bumping around in his house, that he's like, oh, ignore that. And we're like, we're much like the narrator, you know, telltale, we will not forget this.
Yeah,
we will remember this.
What is the fucking what the little like Dragon Age approval signs where it was like
Cannibal Siren did not like that.
Cannibal Siren highly disapproves. Greatly, that's what it is. Greatly disapproves.
Greatly disapproves.
I did greatly disapprove of that.
So that was part 5, and then I feel like part 6 was somehow the neighbor needs somewhere to stay, and suddenly he's in our house.
Which is also sketch, by the way.
Yeah, what's the Howie?
Especially because we've established now
that no one can be trusted.
That this monster, no one can be trusted, and also this monster is in his head. We can hear his thoughts.
Yes, that was also established this chapter when Howie was there. We had a moment of history exposition with Brandon, the narrator. He revealed to us that when he was younger, I want to say like less than 8 years old, he had a close friend named Zach who disappeared, but was always assumed to have died in a horrifying accident.
Car wreck. Yeah, a car wreck because he got
Yeah, like a
they
drive.
found like his
what's it called?
mangled
Hit and
bike.
run. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the monster in the basement tapped right the fuck into that and it brought up all of his trauma right to the surface. And you know what he said about it? I'm gonna go the fuck to sleep.
As he should.
I mean, it shows on one hand that the thing in the basement has a present enough mind to manipulate, if possible. It can scheme. It's not just a coat
I think
rack.
it can definitely scheme, yeah.
Well, I mean, part of me was assuming that, based off the rules in part 1, that it was just kind of like a roaming ghost, like a roaming poltergeist. Try not to give it attention. But this one, part 2 shows us that this thing thinks, it calculates, it does specific things to fuck with people. And that wasn't something that was in the rules. Like, he thought about, like, leaving, or he thought about, like, getting a roommate or something, and he was like, fuck, I don't have any friends. I wonder why I don't have any friends. And the coat rack was just like, oh, you know exactly why you don't have any friends. Remember trauma? And that's...
Pretty much, yeah.
That's where that came from, and it was weaponized against him.
And you know what else is interesting, too, is that Paul talks about how he, like, was, doing better, and then suddenly the intruder started to, like, go away, basically, because he was, like, taking his meds,
He's treating the tulpa, even he said it, like his own mental health meter.
Yes.
If my body is poisoned, my mind is poisoned, then this is how it appears to me. And I can't help but think that that's some, like, new age karmic bullshit.
Yeah, there's some shit going on, especially because also he was doing really well.
Oh, there's
and
definitely some fuck shit.
And this thing, like, tempted him. Like, it brought his favorite bottle of alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, it's like...
It said, have a drink, old pal.
Yeah, it actively, like, calculated that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not just, like, a passive thing. It is, like, actively in your head doing shit to fuck with you.
Which is what we figured out in part 7, which is stupid Brandon on his crutches says, I'm gonna go into the basement, but not the way the ghost expects. And he crawls in through the fucking side window and falls down there, and he's looking for the leak that was down there in the corner of the room, and he finds a secret tunnel. Secret tunnel. To Paul's house. Secret fuck shit tunnel. And
I am so frustrated with Brandon for continually being like, you know what I'm gonna do?
Making the wrong choice every single
I'm
time.
gonna go down there.
Not to mention, Mitch called and he was like, did you talk to my dad? And Brandon was like, yeah, I did. And then Mitch just hung up on him. He's like, fuck you.
Mitch was like,
you're
Mitch
gone.
said,
you're
okay,
done.
perfect. Perfect, you're cooked, and then just hung up.
Yeah, he's pretty much just like, well, there it goes, you can't listen to simple instructions.
He was being nice, and that's the thing. Brandon was like, he hung up on me. He must hate me. And I'm like, no, I think that was the polite thing to do, honestly, because he was just like, oh, so you're dead. Okay.
Think about what you could have said but didn't, because it didn't matter anymore.
Right? He's like, you should live the remainder of your life the way you choose, because it's very short.
You're gonna live with the ramifications and consequences of your actions. See ya.
He was like, I'm not gonna lecture you or be mad at you, because you actually don't have the time to listen to me. So enjoy what you've left.
So that was part 7, and then part 8 was yet again Paul just saying, hey, you found that tunnel, huh? Let me explain everything about it immediately. And that's when I sent you Sports Guy Explains meme.
Yes.
Because I was getting really fucking sick of Paul just like explaining
Explaining everything.
everything.
Especially because like Mitch did a really good job of like not explaining everything,
No,
you know, and like
Mitch
having a
just
reason for it.
purported that there were rules and that there were easy things to do to fall in those like boundaries. And he was just like, yeah, just do one thing, you know. I consider my dad dead, so whoever you just saw, you should also consider him dead and not
It's
talk to
better
him.
that way, yeah.
And then he
And
literally
also like
leaves the diner, gets out of
and
his
then goes to
car,
talk
and
to
talks
him
to him. Come
and
on,
then does
man.
it multiple times. And
Come
it's
on,
just it's
man.
so funny. He goes also into this man's
Red
time
flags.
capsule fucking creepy ass house with a
Oh yeah, the
creepy
bunker
shambling
basement.
roommate
Yeah,
that he doesn't want to talk about.
yeah, just ignore
But
that.
also like this also I think my other thing about Paul is that Paul seems to be flipping wildly back and forth between being extremely cagey and vague and metaphorical and not really giving us like anything
And
and
then
like
being
being extremely
overtly
explicit.
descriptive
Yeah,
down
like it's
down
like
to I did this, then this, then this, then this.
mhm. Yep, and like
And it's
so
only
he
when
keeps
questions are
not
asked
sharing.
of him. When he's put on the
Yeah,
spot, he says, "No, you don't need to know about that, but let me tell you this entire fucking story."
okay, yeah, and then he just keeps flipping back and forth. That's what's I think really getting me is that it just feels like inconsistent.
Well, it's because he's gaslighting the fuck out of Brandon. What happens when let's go back to the bear analogy, right? Now, the problem with the bear
Yes, the
analogy
bear.
now for part 3 is what if Paul is the bear and it's too smart to just get distracted by you dropping a hat or your backpack? You know, that's you just walked into his cave. You took a look around at everything. You said, "Oh yeah, there's some fuck shit." And now you have your back to a wall because a bear is just like fucking staring at you. Like, I don't think the narrator Brandon has really considered how all of his actions are going to stack up. And when he continues, I mean, there was an element. I don't mean to like completely ignore it, but there was an element of the last chapter of chapter 8 where he was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to say anything to get out of this dude's fucking basement cuz he sucks." But
Right,
outside
and
of
my other
outside of that though, he's mostly been eating it up.
right, and like my other thing too is like he's clearly my thing with Brandon is that I'm just like, okay, well, you weren't supposed to talk to this guy in the first place. Second of all, now that you've talked to him, he has been like inconsistent. He's gaslit you. Like he's also now at this point he's also confessed
Yes.
that he literally pushed this off onto you and that it was his problem and now
Yes.
it's yours. And you're
Yes.
still gonna believe him.
Yeah, I think there are bigger
You're
fish to
still
fry,
gonna
frankly. I just
right. Or
I
is he?
think I think if he was on your team, he would give you answers to questions you needed, like how do I get rid of this thing for real? And it's just like him saying, well, you know, you dig up your demons, you bring out the bones, and
Mm-hmm.
you bury them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that should be enough, maybe, question mark. And that's just not good enough for me. So I really need Mitch to show up and literally just smack Brandon in the face. And just say, like, syndrome, you know, what's the syndrome meme? Where it's just like, you incorrigible fuck.
Yeah, exactly. I would love honestly, I kind of want Mitch to be like, fuck you. You deserve this. You didn't fucking listen to me, so now you're gonna die and it's your fault. Bye, idiot.
I mean, that wouldn't be helpful at all, but
No, it
it
wouldn't be,
would
but
be
it would be
really
funny.
funny.
I would like it though. So it should happen. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Not every piece of media has to bend to my whims, but it would be so nice if it did, you know?
I'm trying to find the meme that sums up. Yeah, it's the "you dense motherfucker"
You
syndrome
dense
meme.
motherfucker. Yes, I know that one.
Yes, the "you dense motherfucker" syndrome meme is me to every decision Brandon is making in this narrative.
Did you text it to me? Hold on.
No, I just because you said you knew what it was.
I have to look it up myself.
You want to see it anyway.
I do. I need the
You
visual.
dense motherfucker.
I need it for reasons. As a dense motherfucker. Yes. Yes, it's exactly what I wanted.
That's how I'm feeling at the beginning of this chapter, and I'm hoping to end this
Yeah,
chapter. I'm hoping to
I'm
end this episode of this podcast in a different place than I'm at right now.
I hope so too, because like I was down for him at first, but now I'm just like he's really frustrating me. I'm getting cranky.
Well, we were also so optimistic at the beginning of the last episode. I mean, and here's not to say that we're disappointed in the story at all. I think writing writing a narrator to follow these steps to hit these plot points is probably tough in itself because he is very much sidestepping good decisions and bad decisions pretty frequently.
Absolutely.
With a healthy dose of luck and convenience. But I'm not taking it out on the author. I think the author has crafted a very compelling story and narrative.
Absolutely.
And my emotional reaction is just brought upon by my frustration that this narrator, this character, is not doing what I would do in this situation, and that is kick down doors with guns and put a barrel to Paul's head and say, "What the fuck? Show me who else lives here."
Right, and like, I know also for me, I don't know. I think my thing is like the beginning, like the first episode was fucking awesome, right?
Yes.
It was great. And like I'm fine with like somebody, getting a list and being like, fuck you and fuck this, because honestly, most
That's what I
people
would do.
would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I would be thinking about following rules either, because you don't think it's real until you see proof.
You're talking
right?
like new age chainmail? Yeah, that's going right in the trash.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, yeah, no thanks. Yeah, exactly. I get calls being like, there's a warrant out for your arrest, and I'm like, haha, and then hang up. So
You'll never find me.
yeah, nice try, idiot. Exactly. So it's like I'm and especially for like the vehicle of like a scary story, you absolutely need people to make mistakes, especially mistakes that make sense. Mistakes that anybody would make in that situation. That's what makes it scary, right? Because you're seeing somebody doing exactly what you would do and being punished for it.
Yeah.
But
fair.
but then I don't know if you've ever met a human being. Maybe a human being is a worse analogy. How about a monkey? Have you ever met a monkey that gets fucking cattle prodded and then is like, I'm going to do the thing that I got cattle prodded for again?
No. Yeah. No.
Exactly.
Even
Exactly.
even baser forms of intelligence would not put their hand on a stove and say ow and then put their hand back on
Put
the
it
stove.
back. Right. Like the first time? Sure. You didn't know. It happens. Sometimes you put your hand on something hot and it fucking
ignorance,
burns.
naivety, whatever you want to, rationalize it as. That's a good excuse for a once and done.
But once you know that there's something up.
Yeah, Paul.
And that there's a merit to that little note you got.
Paul is a little bit of a fool me once, fool me twice, like fuck you for fooling me 8 times. I'm waiting for something to happen in regards to
something fucked up is about to happen.
And Mitch was missing for all of the last chapter, so I'm thinking he's gonna have to show back up. What are your expectations with Howie?
I think Howie is somehow part of the entity. I think that Howie is giving him a false sense of security and making him think that he's got time because he's got a guest, and that's really cool. He does not.
Yeah, that's cool. I would go with that.
And it's moving at like the exact same rate of speed as it was, and he's like losing time every day that Howie's in the house.
Yeah, maybe. That's not bad.
That's what I think.
I could also
personally.
see Howie just being a totally banal character that's used as a scapegoat. So could go either way. I was gonna ask if there's anything else you need or anything you must do before we jump into this, but then I remembered that you have a plate of corn dog bites.
I do, and don't worry, I've been muting while I've been eating them so that I don't make
It's
like a
fine.
ton of disgusting
It's
noise.
fine. That's okay.
I know, but I don't want to be the guy that
I
ruins
was
the
gonna
recording by
say, however, that there is actually a warrant out for your arrest. I'm not sure if you knew about this. Do you know what it's for?
What?
It's for being a sexy bitch, baby. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, baby. Oh my god. Yeah, I guess we should read this scary fucking story now, right?
Now that I've levered, yeah. I will start because the last part was supposed to be mine and then you got all of the media exposition. So I'm going to start this time.
Sorry.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to chow down on some corn dogs as I read to you.
Fuck yeah.
Obviously, everyone, I'm here with Cannibal Siren. We're jumping back into what I've aptly called This Coat Rack Can't Hang. And
gorgeous.
the real story is the man in my basement takes one step every week or whenever the fuck he feels like it, apparently.
At any
and my
point,
neighbor sucks.
and my neighbor dug a tunnel into my fucking basement.
Realistically, how would you react if you went down into your basement right now and you found a tunnel and it leads across the street to your fucking weird ass neighbor and you were just like, what?
I think I would probably like board it up myself.
Right.
Right before calling the cops.
Fill it with cement.
Yep, exactly. Be like, oh, you want to dig a fucking tunnel?
Fuck your tunnel. What are you, a mole? Get out of here.
Line it with mines.
Are ghosts afraid of mines? Let's find out.
Let's find out. See how indestructible he is.
All right.
You know what's funny? One time I got super high and I told my partner, I don't remember this, but he wrote this down.
That's the best when you don't remember the funny shit you say when you're high.
He literally he gave me a stuffed animal. He gave me a mole. And I was like, why a mole? Like, it's adorable, but why a mole? He's like, because you said you were a mole. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, that one time.
When you told me?
And he fucking whipped out the receipts. He wrote it down in a note on his phone. He said, yeah, you said, and I quote, I am a mole. I am blind and small and hairy, and I eat dirt and I have sharp claws.
Yeah, sounds like you. Checks out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Oh my god. Really?
That's great. I wish we all could be moles, you know?
Right? That's literally what me and my friend Blake said yesterday. We were like, we should both be moles. It could be better that way. Oh my god.
Great.
Alright, let's see what this fucking anti-mole man is doing.
Yeah, right. Part of me wanted to take up Paul's offer. Part of me wanted to barricade the basement door and pass off my problems to somebody else. Move away and pretend none of this ever happened. But I didn't. I wish I could say it was out of some bedrock moral principle, but mainly, I refused Paul because I didn't trust Paul. Let's have a drink for the boys. Brandon finally came around.
Thank God. It took for fucking ever, but we got there.
It took like 4 parts, but he did it. I doubt Paul even trusted Paul. Now that's something, because maybe he's picking up on the inconsistency that you mentioned.
He definitely is.
So far, I was adding pieces to an ever-evolving clusterfuck of a jigsaw puzzle. The more I learned, the less sense everything made. Part of me wondered if that was the point. If the chaos and confusion was part of the game. I would say so, yeah. Maybe the intruder thought it was funny. Still, the main question remained, is there a way to stop the intruder without passing it off to someone else? Personally, I don't think so. Unless you kind of just... I mean, the alternative is you just let the intruder get you. Right. But then, I assume you run into whatever Paul is now.
Yep.
That's my assumption, at least.
That's also my assumption. I just, like... I don't know. I think we need to hear more from Mitch, honestly.
Yeah, if this isn't It Follows situation and the only downside is fucking dying, and that's the only other option you have, I'm mailing this to someone else. Yeah, for sure.
Damn, yeah, no, I would do it.
Just blind finger in a phone book. Sorry, not sorry. Send it off into the ether. You know. My car rattled as it droned down the number 7 highway. I was on my way back home from meeting with Paul and it was already dark out. I needed to get home and sleep. Then a strange feeling came over me. A pressure in my forehead. Not quite painful, but incredibly uncomfortable. It's not a migraine, either. It felt like a thin sheet of something suddenly appeared behind the skin of my forehead, pressing against my skull. I could almost feel my face pulling tighter. I rubbed my forehead with the back of my arm, and something darted out onto the road in front of me, something big. My foot slammed on the brakes, and my car swerved into a screeching drift. Everything outside blurred into a hazy streak and came to a crashing stop. My car slammed into a roadside barrier post, my head whiplashed sideways and cracked against the window. I blacked out and came to only seconds later. This dude really is not lucky at all.
No, he's having a really bad time.
He's having a real bad, week. Also, the pressing against the skull thing and then rubbing my forehead with the back of my arm, isn't that what, everyone else is doing?
Yeah, they're doing it. It's
touching
like the
their
back
head
of
or
their
touching
knuckle.
the back of the back of their thumb.
It's the back of their thumb specifically, rubbing the forehead. Howie and Paul both do that. I think Mitch. I think
Mitch did it too.
I think Mitch did it. Yeah.
Yeah, while they were walking outside.
Which makes me wonder if maybe also another theory. Maybe Howie was the first one and he shoved it off on Paul.
Wouldn't that be funny, Howie, as the real OG baddie?
The OG, who ruined everything.
My headlights cast into an open field across the road. In the distance, a brown bear scrambled off into the dark. That's what I almost hit. I moved my arm to feel the side of my head. I moved my arm. I couldn't move. I tried turning my head. Nothing. I tried breathing. Nothing. I tried moving my eyes. With great effort, I glanced to the left, then to the right. I know you're here. A strange but familiar voice echoed in the car. You fucker. Concussion, I told myself. I hit my head, and these are just symptoms. I couldn't smell anything either, or hear anything other than the voice. I forced my eyes down to the steering wheel. It wasn't just my steering wheel, and those weren't just my hands gripped around it. This wasn't even my body. I was trapped behind somebody else's eyes. A silent passenger like that Malkovich movie. It felt like I was wearing somebody else's face like a mask, all the while my senses fading in. And sound first. The sound of torrential rain beating down against the windshield. Howling wind.
Freak shit afoot.
Yeah, I'm following, but I'm not liking it. Howling wind as it gusted through midnight fields. Then the sound of breathing, not my own breathing, the breathing of whoever I was trapped inside. Smell faded in next. Whiskey, vanilla, smoke. One of the hands reached up and adjusted the rearview mirror, and cold blue eyes stared back at me. It was Paul. He looked younger, early 40s maybe. Welcome back. he said, slurring his words, staring at himself through dilated pupils. He was talking directly to me. Paul coughed and rubbed his forehead with the back of his thumb. Pressure squeezed against me like a crushing vice. He smacked his forehead with the palm of his hand, and a jolt of pain shot through me. He hit himself again and again and again, and each impact more painful than the last, until, finally, he stopped. Paul readjusted the mirror, shifted back into drive, and pulled onto the road. Frantic window wipers struggled to keep the rain at bay. I could feel everything now. The rumble of the highway, the taste of the booze, the tobacco, even blood. I was paralyzed. With what little control I had, I forced Paul's vision downward. He tapped the brakes and swerved into the opposite lane, then swerved back. Don't fucking do that, he mumbled. And then another voice entered. Just keep driving. You're almost done. It was Paul's voice again, but different this time, not slurred. Keep fucking driving. You're almost there. I was hearing his thoughts. Maybe hearing wasn't the right word. I was feeling them, almost as if they were my own. But they stuttered in and out, like a bad radio signal. Up ahead on the side of the road, something bright green, a bright green bike. I forced Paul's eyes to look forward, and he swerved. The car clipped into a tailspin and sideswiped into something. 2 sickening thumps, and the car slammed bumper first into a roadside barrier post. Paul's head snapped forward into an exploding airbag, and darkness. Drip. Are they now implying that Paul killed Zach?
Absolutely they are.
Because it seems like this is too small of a world for that to happen.
He definitely killed Zach.
It feels like too small of a world for that to happen. Like,
I mean,
we don't know where the narrator was from. We don't know. I don't know.
I mean, wouldn't it be crazy if he killed Zach and then took him with him so no one would know he killed Zach, and now Zach is shuffling around his house?
Well, damn. Or Zach is the basement monster? The man in your basement?
Could be. Although at this point, the monster's been there. At this point, though, the monster's been fucking with him, you know? So, like before Zach.
You could say fucking with him, but you could also say trying to get his attention.
True. You could say that.
In a weird way, like a manifestation.
A lot going on.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. This is already too much. I'm too high for this. I was trapped behind somebody else's eyes now, and I could feel their thoughts, but this was no ordinary thought stream. It was a dripping fractal of swarming thought streams, all battling for control, like 1,000 tortured minds forcibly melded into one. Eternal anguish. Random memories jumped out from a subconscious mess like a bubbling swamp. Coat rack. One step. Idiot. Mason. Stupid fucking idiot. This was a soul forever damned to an eternity of paralyzed chaos and suffering. This was the intruder.
What?
I knew it. I could feel their feet now, pressed against scratchy carpet. They took one step forward, then another and another. 7 quick steps downward until they tumbled into the wall. Silence. Then, as if puppeteered from above, they slid up the wall and rose to standing, and I snapped into another person. Walking down my neighborhood street. You could take this one.
Okay. We'd sell them to the neighbors.
said a familiar voice.
Pine cones, 5 cents apiece.
It was Mitch. He looked to his side, and there, about 6 feet away, I stood. Mitch shook his head, and a chill went down his spine. Suddenly, I stood in front of my own door, looking up at myself. This is Howie, if you want to read this.
I've seen enough of those for a while.
Howie's voice echoed as he rubbed his forehead with the back of his thumb. Darkness. I couldn't even think straight. Paul's voice echoed. Leaving. Aiden. Coat rack. Sal. Charm. Bastion. Coat rack. Filament. Renshaw. Petroleum. The intruder's voice echoed. Daylight. I stood around the roadside diner, trapped behind Paul's eyes as he climbed into a red Kawasaki motorcycle and looked back towards the diner through the window. I stared at me. I was sitting in a booth, sitting with Mitch. Darkness. Now I shuffled through random memories, upside down, barely breathing, stuck between 2 boulders. In the darkness below me, the faintest shape of a person impossibly tucked between the rocks like a coiled-up viper, the glint of dead eyes. Darkness. A backyard shed cluttered with junk, bleeding hands frantically wrapping wire around the shattered remains of a coat rack. Darkness. Crawling through a tunnel, a dirt ceiling scraping up against my back. Darkness. I'm sorry. Oh God. Paul's voice. I stepped out of a truck. Headlights cut through the night and freezing rain showered down. Red and guts mixed with water on the pavement, and a bloody streak led up the road to a body 50 feet away, crawling. Darkness. The rhythmic thud of a hammer clanging against nails. I stood at the top of the basement steps, staring at a closed door, paralyzed. Darkness. I stood in an apartment kitchen, staring out through a window towards a brick wall view. Darkness. A hospital bed in a bedroom, military medical equipment scattered everywhere, strained, wheezing. Darkness. The smell of burnt hair and gasoline, cold fluorescent light, a charred corpse laying on a morgue table, mouth wide open. Darkness. A blaring truck horn. Finally, I snapped back to the present. Inches from the front of my car, a semi-truck sped by. I was parked on the highway shoulder at a 90-degree angle, and the sun was rising. I was back in the present, or at least that's what I assumed. I looked at my hands. I had clenched them shut and opened them. Collecting my thoughts, I pulled onto the highway and drove. I had no idea what the fuck just happened.
Me neither.
I rubbed my forehead with the back of my thumb. Now he's doing it.
Yup. He's cooked, man. He's fucked.
And you could take the first line of part 10 because shit.
You can leave the house, but never sleep anywhere else.
Yep. He just slept the night in his car, right?
He sure did. He sure did.
So when you sleep somewhere else, you body hop through the intruder?
Apparently. Or maybe the consequences yet to come. Countless theories buzzed through my head as I drove down the highway. Fragments of scattered visions. Did Paul kill Zach in a drunk driving accident?
Did he?
At least he's saying.
Yeah, at least he's saying. He is learning from his... Yeah.
There's nothing I hate more than when something really obvious starts to unfold and the main character is like,
what's going on? What happened
possibly
here?
Did Paul wire up the shattered coat rack, crawl through the tunnel, and set it back in my house?
That also sounds true.
Was Paul a servant of the intruder?
That
was I becoming?
Also feels true.
Was I becoming a servant of the intruder? Yeah, no, that feels right.
If it, what is it? If it looks like a horse, sounds like a horse, well, you better go buy a saddle.
Nope. After my clusterfuck of vision, at least a few things made more sense. Sort of. Not only was the intruder connected to its victims, the intruder's victims were seemingly connected to each other. Maybe it was some kind of hive mind. Maybe it was turning people into intruders themselves. At this point, it seemed like anything was possible. Felt like I was on the verge of figuring this out, finally piecing everything together, but I'd been feeling that way for a while now. Then I thought back to the way Paul's eyes moved outside the diner all those days ago, like somebody had jumped into his head, taken a quick look around, and jumped back out again. Now I knew it was me. I'm the one who jumped into Paul's head and looked towards myself. The nightmare logic of everything made me nauseous, like a carnival ride with no exits. A paradox of web of chaos and madness with answers always hiding just one step out of reach. Answers that only led to more questions. Questions that only led to more confusion. Above all, this was yet another question, something I know you're wondering too. Exactly who was the supposed old friend in Paul's house? Mm-hmm. The person he owed a favor, the person he was supposedly taking care of. Was it my childhood friend, Zach?
Hey.
Insane
hey, there you
to
go.
even consider. It's not insane, though. It's not. Insane. Why are you... You're explaining this to us again.
I mean, now he's trinally I said finally and trying combined as a word, trinally. He's trying to finally make sense of what's going on around him. So I don't want to talk shit about him finally sitting here saying, you know what?
Yeah. Insane to even consider, I know, but hear me out. During my sporadic visions, I saw a green bike. Sorry, I've done something like an idiot. The green bike through Paul's eyes. The exact same bike my friend Zach was riding when he supposedly died. Did Paul hit him all those years ago? Did he find Zach barely alive on the side of the road, bring him back home? Was he keeping him alive to this day with his medical equipment and military training? Was Zach Paul's so-called old friend, the guest keeping the intruder at bay? Did the timelines even match up? It was possible, but crazy to even consider. Mm-hmm. What are the chances? Paul happening to live across the street from me all these years later. How would the police not have found out? Maybe this entity had been involved in my life, literally. Far longer than the last few weeks. Maybe the intruder orchestrated everything from the start. A conductor leading a bizarre and dissonant symphony, devoid of purpose. Now that I thought about it, there was a vague familiarity about everything, like constant deja vu. Like that feeling one gets around death. You'll know it if it ever survived a bad car accident or faced something potentially terminal, or held someone's hand while they lay on their deathbed. You see part of the abyss. You finally realize, maybe for the first time, that at some point you won't exist anymore. Maybe you never existed to begin with. In the words of Max Schumer from Network, death becomes a perceptible thing, with definable features. For all of this, I never really feared death. There were times I even welcomed it.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, right? That's easy to say when death is sitting off in the distance, caged behind bars, but when at the end of everything is standing just 10 feet away, looking you in the eyes, breathing fog out its nostrils. My phone began buzzing in a cup holder, slowly spinning around as the screen lit up. Someone was calling me. Pulled into the lot of a nearby gas station. Buster's Better Gas. I called him back.
Bradley?
With the voice on the other end. Brandon.
Oh, Brandon. Duh.
It was Howie, of course. What's up, Howie?
Not much. Just, checking to see if you're okay. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I'm fine. Just been running some errands.
Oh, you weren't here last night?
No.
Huh.
What?
Well, somebody tore down your art thing.
Art thing? I'd already forgotten about my excuse for the barricaded door.
The basement door. The whole thing's gone. Frame and all.
Shit, it ripped the frame out. Not just the door off the hinges, the frame out of the wall.
I like that.
Oh, I said, trying to sound calm. Yeah, I paid some guys to take it out. I lied.
In the middle of the night?
Yeah, I guess so, if that's when they showed up.
I went to bed and the door was there, and I woke up and the door was gone.
Oh, now is not the time to develop critical thinking skills. I guess they weren't quiet, I said. The lie growing more absurd by the second.
I'll say, I'm a light sleeper too. Oh, anyways, I'm just calling to ask if it's cool if I crash a few more weeks. I'll pay you the rent once I get the money.
Yeah, Howie, don't worry about it. That's it.
Yeah, I'll see you, Brandon. Thanks again. Really means a lot.
I hung up. Fantastic. Now the basement door was gone. So much for slowing him down. In all the chaos, I still hadn't realized my violation of Rule 8. You can leave the house, but never sleep anywhere else. The importance of this rule cannot be overstated. Looking back, it would probably explain the missing basement door and a few other things to come. My thoughts drifted back to Mitch. I knew he knew a lot more than he was letting on. I still didn't trust him, but I trusted him a lot more than Paul. Low bar, I know. I pulled up my phone and dialed his number. 5 tones rang out straight to voicemail. Mailbox full. I called again. Same thing. 2 tones rang out. Silence. He cut the call short. Mitch was ignoring me. Time for plan B. Inside the gas station, I bought a cheap burner phone and a pack of smokes. Sure, I quit a few months back, but I needed something to calm my nerves.
Yeah,
Besides, I'd quit again after this pack. Stop judging me.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not judging, man. I would have been fucking chain smoking the minute all this shit started.
That entire car ride, yeah.
Back in my car, I lit up a smoke and called Mitch on the burner phone. He wouldn't recognize the number this way. I hated being stalkerish, but my life literally depended on it. 3 tones rang out, and Mitch answered.
Hello?
Mitch, please don't hang up. Silence, and then...
What do you want?
I'm sorry, I spoke with your... I stopped myself from saying Dad. With the neighbor, I just...
What do you want?
Repeated Mitch, losing patience. I just need to talk. One more time in person. He sighed.
I've already said too much. Just keep following the rules. Ignore everything else. Ignore Paul.
Mitch, please. I'm literally losing my mind here.
Mitch,
just one
please.
More talk. Please. Please.
What did you tell the neighbor?
Barely anything. I just said...
You know what? Never mind.
He sighed again.
33333 something 3 Baker Street. Ring me when you get here.
He ended the call. Mitch lived about 40 minutes away in a small town off the interstate. One of those towns where the main street's nothing but a graveyard of pre-Walmart family shops, survival of the cheapest. I pull up to an old and gray concrete apartment building that looked straight out of Soviet Russia. I checked the address. This was the place. Can you chill?
What?
Sorry, Finn is yelling at me. Stop yelling.
I didn't hear him. That's okay.
Good. Enough. Relax.
Who are you talking
Lugging my
to?
crutches up. He's like, what are we doing? Lugging my crutches out of the back seat, I climbed out of the car and shut the door. Thanks to crashing into the roadside barrier, a heavy indent was scraped into the side of my car. Great. I double-checked my pockets. Phone, check. Switchblade, check. I brought my chrome switchblade everywhere now, just in case.
What good has it ever done you?
Yeah, what good has it done? Also, you're bringing a fucking knife to an
To a
entity
ghost
fight.
party, yeah.
Yeah, bro, you need the goddamn Ghostbusters. The
Some
interior
incense or
of
something, I don't know.
literally light some
Salt.
incense, do a cleansing,
Iron.
do some sage. Yeah,
Silver.
fucking figure it out.
Figure it out.
Juniper branches, maybe. The interior of Mitch's place looked early 70s to me. Open design, cut down the middle, half kitchen, half living room. Stop.
It's
He tried to
okay.
dig under something. Get out of here. You are so disruptive. It's his birthday soon.
Maybe that's why he's reminding you.
It's so terrible. Here, I'm just gonna cover it with a blanket. That usually works. It's like putting a blanket over a cage with a bird in it. He just sort of lays down and forgets what he was doing.
Yeah.
The interior of Mitch's place looked early 70s to me. Open design, cut down the middle, half kitchen, half living room. Between them, a bar with rickety stools. There was something vaguely familiar about it. Deja vu. Mitch looked a little better than the last time I saw him. Still tired, though. Hey, Mitch, I said, forcing a smile as I took off my coat. Silent. Mitch stood about 6 feet away. He strode back into the kitchen and started scrubbing dishes in the sink. I pulled the door shut behind me. Mitch scraped grime off a cast iron frying pan, his back turned to me. I walked up to the edge of the kitchen and looked around. His place was tidy, like a hotel room.
What did the neighbor tell you?
Said Mitch, referring to his father. A lot.
You believe him?
I don't know. Mitch sighed, tossed the dishes down, and turned off the sink. Shaking water off his hands, he spun around and leaned back against the countertop.
So what do you want from me?
He said, crossing his arms. I have some questions. Some was an understatement.
Okay.
I didn't know where to start. Last night I almost ran into a bear on the number 7. I swerved, hit my head on the window, blacked out for a second, and then...
You snapped into other people's minds. You saw things from the past, maybe even the future.
I looked at him, surprised. Yeah, I mean, more than that, but... Mitch shook his head as if to say I expected as much. What does it mean? I said.
Look, what you're doing right now, you being here, this whole rabbit hole of trying to find the truth, it's not healthy. The more obsessed you get, the more crazy you become, the crazier you are, the easier it is for it to control you.
Control me? Mitch ignored the question.
Stop expecting some priest or medium to come in and explain what's going on. Nobody is going to show up and tell you how this thing spawned from an ancient curse or some other bullshit, and the only way to kill it is to sacrifice a firstborn or pray to Jesus. That's not what this is. He said mockingly. That's not what this is. You can't reason with something that doesn't think. The only thing you can do is keep following the rules and put off more time between now and...
Trailed into a morbid silence.
If you think this is gonna end all tied up with a neat little bow, you're gonna end up severely fucking traumatized.
As if I wasn't already.
It's fair.
Mitch looked up at the ceiling, considering his next words carefully.
There is a good reason I've been so vague about everything. The more involved you are, the more you know. The more you share, the more you search for answers. The more it slithers into your life, into your thoughts, into your dreams, everything.
Mitch rubbed his jaw.
I barely escaped it myself.
I looked across the room and stared at the door behind me. I glanced back over my shoulder. There was a floor-length mirror at the door, partially obscured by my coat.
After it took my dad, I almost got pulled in. I started researching, investigating, and that's when the visions started, like what happened with you in your car. The intruder feeds you these little snippets of random moments, and all of them feel like they might be connected, like they should have a reason, and maybe they do, but just because something has a reason doesn't mean it's a good one.
What's gonna happen to me?
It's already happening. You're becoming a servant of the Tulpa, or whatever it is. The worst part is, you'll still feel in control, but you won't be. And soon enough, you'll start breaking into people's houses at night, leaving coat racks in the basement, trying to tell other neighbors about it. Maybe you've already done it and forgot. then you'll be telling neighbors not to worry about it, telling them to work on themselves, telling them that it's all in their heads, even telling them that your life got better ever since the intruder showed up, and maybe theirs will too.
I don't know all this.
I don't know. It's a theory. A gay theory!
A gay theory.
At the end of the day, who the fuck knows anything about anything? Who knows what this thing wants? Maybe it feeds off the chaos. Maybe it's working towards something bigger. I don't know. I don't want to. Not anymore. I wasted too many years searching for answers, believing that the key to all of this was just around the corner. A satisfying revelation where everything would finally make sense, but it never came. Every answer only led to more questions, more confusion, more obsession, more suffering.
How did Paul really die? Mitch grit his teeth. Then he just stared at me, shaking his head, eyes filled with "fuck it, you really want to know?"
When I was a kid, after Mom took us and moved out, a few years went by, and Dad started getting his life together. He stopped drinking, stopped leaving creepy notes in people's shoes, got on some good meds, etc. So, Mom, after some gentle pushing from my sister, calls him up, asks him out for coffee.
Mitch went silent, eyes flicking back and forth across the wall behind me.
That same night after the phone call, Dad gets shit-faced for no reason. Drives up to the Balry Cliff. Same lookout he and Mom used to go stargazing at.
Mitch grimaced.
So he drives full speed towards the cliff edge and slams bumper first into a barrier post.
He shook his head.
Believe it or not, he wasn't the first person to try and drive a car off of Balry Cliffs. City had put up some posts a few months prior.
Mitch pressed his tongue into the side of his cheek, thinking.
So anyways, Dad's still drunk as hell. Passed out. Face in the airbag.
Mitch pushed off from the counter, stepped over to the table, pulled out a chair, and sat down.
Gas leak catches fire. Dad burns alive.
Mitch tapped his knuckles against the table a few times.
Police said he was out cold, didn't feel a thing. But I knew enough to know that that wasn't true. I saw the corpse in one of those visions, mouth wide open.
Mitch opened his own mouth to show.
I'm no expert, but people generally don't scream when they're asleep.
Mitch slapped the table and ran his hand back and forth a couple of times.
So, we make arrangements to sell Dad's house. It's the weekend, we're moving stuff out, and then...
He paused, looking directly at me.
There comes Dad, riding a brand new motorcycle. And he's all confused, too. What are we doing with his stuff, you know?
Mitch breathed out his nose.
So, he said he was on a trip out of the county the last few months, said he just got back. Of course, Mom loses her mind. Hell, we all lose our minds. Dad's back from the grave and all.
Mitch looked away, his eyes watering slightly now. He stamped his foot against the laminate flooring.
The coroner's report, the police, everything. It's like none of it even happened. Mom was hysterical, screaming at the police station, saying they were trying to gaslight us. They weren't, but I almost wish they were. Documents never existed, at least not anymore. State almost took us away from her for insanity, so she stopped talking about it. We all did. Telling people you believe in ghosts lands you in an awkward conversation. Telling people your dad is back from the dead lands you in a psych ward.
scoffed.
The thing that really fucked with me, aside from the obvious, was his hands.
Mitch held up his hands and spread his fingers.
10 fingers, including the one that he had shot off in the basement.
Mitch looked at me again.
This thing bent reality over us like a fucking wire. Like it bumped us into a parallel world or something.
Mitch looked away again, staring at the kitchen cupboards as he spoke.
Dad, or whatever replaced him, kept trying to reconnect with us, but we wouldn't have it. We moved cross-county, cut off all ties.
Mitch sighed.
Things got a little better after that. Distance helped, especially back then.
Trailed off into silence. What made you come back?
My sister, Evelyn. She was convinced the intruder followed us after Dad died, after we moved. She thought it was trying to possess her, take over her thoughts. Evelyn ended up taking her own life a few years back because of it. Overdose. Plastic bag over the head.
He trailed off, eyes filled with painful memories.
I just wanted to find a way to stop this. Make sure it didn't happen to anyone else.
I'm sorry. Mitch smiled sadly and gave a little shrug.
So I started asking around Dad's neighborhood, low profile, asking if people had seen anything, heard anything about my dad. Everyone there was so fucking weird. Weird in similar ways, too. Tics, like...
He rubbed his forehead with the back of his thumb, to show.
People forgetting random words. You know, their eyes lighting up randomly, looking around as if somebody else was inside their head. It's the same stuff I noticed with my dad, only more extreme. Like the thing from the basement was spreading, taking over the whole neighborhood like a virus.
He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. How did you figure out the rules?
I didn't. I mean, not fully. Those were just things that seemed to slow it down, at least in my dad's case. And before we left him, I found it all scribbled up on a napkin. Dad, for all of his flaws, he's really fucking smart. Logical. He would have tested things out, experimented, figured out exactly what the entity reacts to, doesn't react to.
So the more you know, the more he controls you?
Maybe. It's only a theory.
I'm basically fucked no matter what I do. Mitch stepped up from the table and strode over to the kitchen sink, stared out at a brick wall view. He sighed.
Look, Brandon, I should have been more honest with you before, but you want to know the truth, right?
Yes.
This has been over and done with from the start.
I didn't respond.
Ever since you snapped that coat rack in half. It was game over.
We said that. We said that
We did
literally
say
not
that, yeah.
10 minutes ago.
Oh, he's
I
fucked.
blinked.
Yeah.
He looked back over at me from over his shoulder.
I didn't tell you that because I didn't want you to panic. The calmer you are, the more sane you are, the longer it takes for this thing to get a hold of you.
Get a hold of me.
You're becoming a part of it now, just like my dad, just like the neighbors.
And there's nothing I can do about it? Mitch shook his head and looked back out the window.
You should leave.
He said, resting his hands onto the countertop. But I still don't...
Leave!
He snapped, his voice booming with surprising loudness. I shook my head, crouched back for the door, pulled on my coat, and wrapped my hand around the doorknob. Thanks for the help, I said, voice dripping with sarcasm. I turned the knob, but it was locked. Weird. I unlocked it and tried again. Still stuck. almost like somebody was pressing their weight against it from the other side. Mitch? I said, no response. I looked into the mirror on the door. Behind me, Mitch, with his back turned, now stood in the center of the kitchen. Pin straight posture, hands covering his face like somebody playing peekaboo. Mitch, I said, looking back over my shoulder. Suddenly, the room shifted darker, but the lights didn't go out. Everything dimmed into slow-motion nightmare. Mitch's left hand shot straight up into the air as if being pulled from above. Then his right hand, both hands straight up in the air, standing on his tiptoes now. I watched in wide-eyed horror, paralyzed. Suddenly, his arms swung to his sides like an invisible straitjacket wrapped around him. He stood there motionless, then he burst into coughing, hunched over, staggering towards the sink, rubbing his forehead as he went. You okay? I said, taking a few careful steps forward. He threw a hand back, motioning me to stay back. I did, but his desperate wheezing and coughs only grew worse. Was he choking? He thumped his chest until finally something flew out of his mouth and it plopped into the dirty sink water.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
I glanced back towards the door. Mitch, his back still turned to me, plunged a hand into the soapy water, fishing around for whatever came out of his throat. He froze, and his eyebrows raised slowly. He lifted something out of the water. It was an object about the size of a chapstick, but I couldn't tell what it was from this distance.
What the fuck?
Mitch whispered. His hands suddenly swung to his sides again. The object flew to the floor, slid across the kitchen, and slowed to a stop right in front of me. It was a dismembered finger. What the fuck was right? Mitch staggered back from the sink. 7 quick steps. Straightened up into a pin-straight posture again. Tried to speak, but only gargled whimpers escaped like he was being suffocated. I stepped backwards to the door, eyes darting around the room for another escape. No balcony. Too many floors for that anyway.
What the fuck?
Mitch screamed.
What the?
His voice cut off into a choking mess. His throat swelled up like something was pushing on it from the inside out. His head snapped back, forced him to look straight up at the ceiling, and then something pushed out from his mouth. Several somethings long and wriggling like worms. Fingers with extra joints sliding out from his mouth and wrapping around his face. Gaunt hands, unnaturally large, squeezing together as they wriggled their way out of his mouth like a face hugger. Pig-colored skin scarred with burn marks. Those same hands I saw wrapped around the coat rack all those nights ago, forcing Mitch's mouth open wider and wider until the corners of his lips started to tear muffled, agonizing screams. Enough was enough. I spun around and shouldered into the door, using all my weight to crash into it again and again, all the while the horrific sight behind me reflecting on the door mirror, hidden by shadows. Something barely visible, tall and fetus-like, was forcibly climbing out of Mitch's body, dripping with blood and guts, pushing what was left of Mitch's skin down like somebody climbing out of an undersized wetsuit. Disgusting. Horrific. Finally, the door broke open. I stumbled into the hallway and slammed into the opposite wall. One of my crutches fell back into Mitch's apartment. Goodbye, crutch. I single-crutched the fuck out of there, but the hallway was different now, stretching on for eternity in both directions, growing darker and darker. I didn't have time to think about it. I just kept pushing forward, hobbling down the increasingly narrow passage behind me, the sound of staggering footsteps getting closer all the while.
Brandon, wait.
A small, whimpering voice cried out,
Brandon, please come back.
No fucking way. It's when I realized the hallway's increased length was partially an illusion, a forced perspective miniature gradually getting smaller and smaller as it went. I kept pushing forward, the ever lower ceiling scraping against my head, forcing me into crouching, forcing me into my hands and knees, crawling into this ever more miniature apartment hallway, as the walls, whatever was chasing me, pulled closer, the smell of burnt hair and gasoline growing stronger all the while. Darkness. The air changed from dry, air-conditioned cool to humid and dark. I didn't care. I just kept crawling, shuffling forward bit by bit, my back scraping against the now inexplicably dirt ceiling as I went. Up ahead, light suddenly appeared less than 20 feet away. A room. Exhausted, I crawled faster at the sound of my own desperate breath bouncing off the walls around me. Almost there. Finally, I broke into the room and spun around. The tunnel was empty. As far as I could see, whatever had been chasing me was gone for now. Crotchless, I pulled myself into a nearby wall and slumped against it. Caught my breath, eyes locked on the dark tunnel all the while. Just in case. After a few minutes of catching my breath and calming myself down, I looked around. Dirt floors, plywood walls. This impossibly shifting tunnel had led me to the back corner of a basement. But not just any basement. Paul's basement. Of course. R.I.P. Mitch.
So I was gonna say, was that real? Did that happen? Or did he get home and was all of this some imaginary tomfuckery to get him where it needed to get him, which is apparently into Paul's basement?
Paul's basement, yeah.
Because the only way to connect from Paul's basement would have been his basement. So I'm starting to think he got home somehow. Maybe maybe he was talking to Mitch on the phone, and from that point forward he went into like autopilot mode, and this thing carried on the impression of Mitch to get him back to the house, to get him into the basement, to get him into the tunnel.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at mentally, because I think Mitch hanging up and then saying, "This is my fucking address, please come," are two very different things.
I think so too.
And that to me is one of those inconsistencies that you picked up on last chapter. So it's like, if we're starting to see the seams of where this thing jumps in. And I don't think he's fucked from the get-go. I don't think that would be the point of the story necessarily. I think this thing perpetuating a sense of you're fucked is 100% like in its wheelhouse.
I think so too, yeah.
Because it just knows, like it said, like more chaos equal more desperation. Desperation means, you know, being exhausted. Being exhausted means making mistakes. Mistakes equals death. Like, you know, a pretty fuck shit game of Chutes and Ladders.
Yep, the worst one in the world. This is the worst playthrough of Candyland I've ever had.
I was gonna say, instead of Chutes and Ladders, this is coat racks and fuck shit.
Coat racks and fuck shit.
Anywho.
Coat racks and intruders.
Yeah, coat racks and intruders. Oh, part 11. None of these rules are set in stone. The intruder seems to evolve and react depending on your actions. I mean, yeah. I kind of knew that Mitch was full of shit when he said that this thing doesn't think. Like, of course it does. It's literally been calculating since I was wrong. I originally thought it was a roamer, and Paul's entire shtick in part 8 was this thing doesn't just roam. It's like thinking everything through an escape room. How do I get out?
Yeah, exactly.
It has a homing beacon on your ass, and it's getting closer.
And it's gonna get you.
It's gonna get you. How I ended up in Paul's basement didn't matter right now. Didn't it? I just wanted out. Easier said than done, especially considering I lost both of my crutches in the chase. Well, but at least the light was on, for now. Oh, let's pray to God the bunker door isn't locked. It should be. Wouldn't make sense for it not to be. Leaning against...
but this isn't the story of incredible inconveniences.
Yeah, incredible inconveniences and inconsistencies, yeah.
Yes.
Leaning against the concrete wall for support, I shimmied up onto one foot. These are also things he saw in his vision. The leaning against the concrete wall and shimmering up it, and then the going through the tunnel with your back hitting the ceiling. Those were both things in my chapter. Hobbling forward, I maneuvered my way through the maze, one painful step at a time. Tedious didn't even begin to describe it. Nearly 3 hours went by until I finally found footprints, the same footprints from when Paul and I were down here a few days ago. Something to follow, thank God. Encouraged, I shuffled my way forward bit by bit. A hollow thud from somewhere deep within the maze, a fist thumping against plywood. My heartbeat quickened. I picked up the pace, rounded another corner, and more thumping, quicker now, closer too. I hobbled faster, my limp cast leg dragging uselessly behind me. More thumping. 2 quick thumps each time now, like a heartbeat. The rhythm almost matching the pace of my own heart, getting quicker and quicker as the sound moved ever closer. I rounded another corner, and finally, the exit was in sight. Somehow the bunker door was open. Inexplicably open. Another suspicious, convenient blessing. At least he's aware of it.
He does seem very aware of how improbable.
It's now getting like meta, how he's like, isn't this fucked? Let's continue.
Yeah, that's my thing. I feel like it's, yeah, I'll reserve judgment till the end.
Yeah. With renewed vigor, I pushed forward. The thumping echoed in the hallway just behind me now, right on my heels. The lights snapped off, pitch dark. Only the faint glow of moonlight cast against the basement steps up ahead. I pulled closer, one painful lurch at a time. Finally close enough, I pushed off the wall and staggered through the open door, falling chin first into the stairs. The thumping sound right behind me. I pushed up, slammed the bunker door shut, latched the lever down. Another close call. I stood motionless at the door, listening for minutes. Nothing. Dead silence. I looked back over my shoulder, and the door at the top of the basement steps was open too. Wide open. Bluish moonlight revealed the foyer above. Why are all the doors left open? I asked myself intelligently. I turned around and used the railing to pull myself upward. Another painful and tedious slog. Trying my best to be as quiet as possible, not easy. The last thing I wanted was for Paul to wake up and find me crawling out of his basement with no good excuse. I don't think that's what you need to worry about right now.
Buddy.
Yeah.
We're beyond
Let's
that,
prioritize man. Paul being in here trying to kill you because he's a servant of the intruder.
He dug a tunnel to your house, man.
He put that coat rack in your basement, bro. He pulled it out of the trash, put it back together, gave you a present. After 10 minutes of painstaking effort, I finally reached the main floor. The familiar smell of vanilla-flavored cigarillos hung in the air. On my hands and knees, I crawled toward the front door, going even slower than before so as to not make a sound, inch by inch. When I finally reached the door, I grabbed a sturdy umbrella from a bucket in the corner and used it to push to standing, a makeshift cane. No match for a crutch, but as sure as fuck beat crawling. I reached for the doorknob and froze. A pressure suddenly pushed into my forehead like a migraine. I rubbed my brow with the back of my thumb, stopped, lowered my hand. That was the weird tick, the thing Howie did, the thing Paul did, the thing Mitch did before he... When did I start doing it? Why did I start doing it? I shook it off and reached for the... I mean, it's the thing getting into your head. You know, it's that little niggling sensation.
There, like a little fucking mole.
Yeah. Back to the moles.
To the mole people.
I shook it off and reached for the door, but again stopped short. Another recurring question bubbled up from my subconscious. Who is Paul's so-called old friend? Who was the person in the room down the hallway? I peered back over my shoulder, trying to push the curiosity away, trying to just reach for the door and leave, but I couldn't. That strange, familiar, almost magnetic pull of needing to know the answers grew stronger with each passing second. I glanced around the foyer. Where did Paul sleep? You know, save for the basement, it wasn't a big house. There were only 3 doors in the hallway. 3 doors down. Kryptonite. One of them was probably a bathroom. Probably. I don't know. Have you seen the outside? It's probably full of shit.
Shit's downstairs. Let's be so real. He shits in that unfinished
Stinky
basement.
down there. I turned fully around, stepped forward into the foyer, and lurched to another stop. No. It is not safe here. My survival instincts screamed so profoundly I could almost hear it. Go home! As everyone shouts from the audience. Finally listening to my smarter self, I turned back to the door. Go home and sleep. I turned the knob, and another question jumped into my head. What if Zach is in the room? Yo, there's no possible way. Did the timelines even match up? Have we done the Pepe Sylvia fucking whiteboard with explanation yet? How old would he even be now? How would the police not have known? But if it was Zach, maybe I could get a photo. Take it to the law. The law. My feet were bringing me back down the hallway before my head even made up its mind. Thank God the floors were carpeted, or I would have woken up the whole neighborhood. Another painful hobble down the hallway until I reached the door to the mysterious room and froze. I took 3 deep breaths, intentionally, in and out, then reached for the handle. Locked. I tried again. Still locked. Nothing changed. Not sure what I expected. I looked around. Me. Damn, it's still locked. I looked around. The house was quiet, motionless, almost like everything was on pause, frozen in time to an unnatural degree, a stillness that reminded me of the first night I found the coat rack, the same unsettling quiet in the air. Another weird thing I didn't have time to think about right now. I pulled the switchblade out from my back pocket and shimmied it into the door frame. I have a lot of experience with discreetly unlocking doors, don't ask. I tilted the knife upwards, pushed forward over the latch, and the foyer light clicked on. My view snapped down the hallway. Footsteps. Footsteps coming from the living room. I staggered backwards into the kitchen just in time.
Wow.
Paul's voice echoed. How did he get out here? Was he asleep on the couch? I ducked down beneath the bar, separating the kitchen from the living room. This was not a good situation, no matter how you spun it, especially considering the fact that Paul owns a gun. A gun he was not afraid to use. Part of me wanted to come out of hiding, explain myself, but at this point it felt likely that Paul was being influenced by the intruder, possessed even. Either way, I still needed to know who was in that room.
Hello?
Paul's voice echoed down the hallway this time. I huddled further into the shadowy corner, waiting, listening. Paul strode back into the living room. He flicked another light on. A stretch of draining silence followed. He was listening, too. He was waiting. A long, silent standoff crawled by, 5 minutes at least, nothing but the sound of my own breathing, and then Paul cleared his throat and moved towards the kitchen, toward me, his footsteps getting closer and closer until the floor beneath me jostled slightly. Paul was standing on the opposite side of the bar now. If he leaned forward and peeked down, that was it. I held my breath, knife still in hand. Shit, I should have tucked it away earlier. Now I really looked crazy and dangerous. Too late now. Paul was close enough to hear even the slightest movement, a fucking mouse fart. Another impossibly long silence dragged by. Seconds like minutes, minutes like hours, holding my breath all the while, growing tenser and tenser until... flick. The switchblade flicked open. My tense grip must have bumped the switch. Fucking idiot. The floor creaked as Paul stepped back from the counter. My head raced 1,000 thoughts. A second. Paul huffed, stepped forward again. Suddenly, the tips of his fingers stepped into view, gripping over the edge of the countertop above me. The bar top bent and strained as he leaned forward, pressing his weight down against it. Inching closer and closer, Paul was going to peer underneath the counter and see me hiding there, crazy-eyed, sleep-depraved, armed with a switchblade, and... buzz, buzz, buzz. Somewhere in the house, a phone, my savior, vibrated against a wooden surface. Paul huffed again, his hands slipped out of view, and he strode back into the living room, away from the kitchen. Finally, I inhaled a breath of overwhelming relief, a relief that quickly faded when I realized the situation hasn't changed. He'd come back soon enough, and I needed to be somewhere else when he did.
Mitch?
Said Paul, his voice filled with bewilderment.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
He was speaking softly now, comforting. Silence. Paul was listening to Mitch now, or whatever it was claiming to be on the other end. Who the fuck knew at this point?
You sure it was him?
Said Paul, listening.
When?
More listening.
Mm-hmm.
A short pause.
Did you call the police?
Another pause.
No, I understand. That makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, Mitch, not right now, but at some point we should at least get some authorities involved, okay? He's clearly not well. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'll meet you there.
He strode back into the living room and pulled a jacket on. What in the fuck was going on here? Were they talking about me? Why was Mitch suddenly talking to his supposedly estranged father? Was that even Mitch? There's no way it was. It had to be the intruder messing with Paul, but was that even Paul? My head was exploding with an influx of questions. If the intruder's goal was to make me go insane with confusion and paranoia, then a mission accomplished. Congratulations. Paul strode down the hallway again. He was coming back towards the kitchen. Fuck. He stopped in front of the kitchen entrance, standing in the hallway. His back was mostly turned to me. All he needed to do was look slightly to the right, and the jig was up. 10 long seconds dragged by until finally he turned towards the mysterious guest room, went for the handle, and it was locked. Shaking his head, he reached up on top of the door frame, slid his hand across, and pulled down a key and unlocked the door. He cracked it open and peered into a dark room.
Mitch called. Something happened at his place. Gonna see if he's alright. Back in a few hours, give or take.
He pulled the door mostly closed and froze. He pushed it open again.
Open or closed?
No audible response. Paul locked the door from the inside, pulled it shut, and tucked the key back on top of the door frame. He marched back towards the foyer, flicking off all the lights as he went. And then suddenly, he froze. Another long silence dragged by, and then the foyer light flicked on again. What was he doing? The answer hit me like a bag of bricks to the face. The door. I forgot to close the door at the top of the basement stairs. In my defense, it was open when I got here, but I doubted that was Paul's doing. I could hear him creep across the foyer and stop. Now, I assumed he was at the top of the basement steps, standing in front of an open door he never left open. He pulled the door shut, locked it, wandered back to the foyer, and then he started pacing back and forth, pacing circles.
Fuck.
He muttered to himself, clearly in the middle of a panic attack or something even worse. This continued for 3 long minutes until finally he stormed out the front door and slammed it shut behind him. Silence. Outside, a bike engine turned on, peeled out of the driveway, sped off. He was finally gone. Finally. My eyes drifted back towards the guest room. Curiosity burning stronger than ever. I actually think it might be his daughter.
That's what I was literally just thinking.
I was, in my head, if someone tried to kill themselves and failed, wouldn't they be in, the worst fucking condition ever?
Pretty much, yeah. When you
And
try
if
to
the
kill you,
mom
especially
is gone,
depending...
or incarcerated, or in asylum, you fall back onto the only other guardian.
Right.
When did you think of this? Because I was only thinking it just now.
No, like just now, like literally
We
as
were
he
both on the same
the
note.
minute he entered the house. Yeah, I was
Because
like,
this
wait.
person knows who Mitch is, and I assume if it's Paul talking,
Mhm.
then it has to be someone who knows who Mitch and Paul are. Which
Yep.
leads me to believe it's either the mom or it's Holly or it's Evelyn.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if Evelyn
I'm
really
leaning
did get
Evelyn.
through with killing herself, then it's just Holly.
Yeah,
Who's probably not in good condition either.
probably not. No.
My money is on Evelyn.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's Evelyn too.
My eyes drifted back towards the guest room door, curiosity burning stronger than ever, but I decided to wait 3 minutes longer just in case Paul forgot something and came back. 3 minutes went by and I crept out into the hall. I hobbled to the door, reached up to the frame, slid my hand across, and found a key. Hands shaking, I unlocked the door and stopped. I breathed deep. What if Zach was on the other side? What if it was really just an old friend of Paul's? What would I do with that knowledge? Was my obsession for answers really pulling me deeper into the intruder's web? I turned my head sideways and placed my ear against the door. A slow and muffled beep, beep, beep. What was the sound of a heart monitor? I leaned back, took a deep breath, turned the knob, and pushed open the door. Gut-wrenching stench hit me like a wall, like a rotting food and burnt hair. A smell so strong I could almost taste it. Turning away, I clenched my eyes shut and buried my nose into my inner elbow. I held there until the stench subsided somewhat. I turned back towards the room. Most of it was hidden in shadows, cluttered with military-grade medical equipment, just like the room in my vision. Heart monitors, IV bags, even a table laden with surgical tools. Near the window was a slightly inclined hospital bed. On the bed lay a man. Or at least that's what I assumed. He was wrapped in medical bandages, medical tubes stuck out of his arms, his wrists, even his legs. Bandages covered most of his face, save for his lower jaw and a small slit for the eyes. I crept forward. The slow, rhythmic beep of the heart monitor remained steady. Whoever it was, they weren't aware of my presence yet. But I didn't care either way. I just needed to know. I reached the side of the bed and stopped. His eyes were clenched shut as if pretending to sleep. His exposed jaw was scarred, mangled. Part of his lips were peeled back, revealing teeth behind. I'm no medical expert, but it looked like a severe burn victim. Fuck, is this Paul?
It's gotta be, right? He's a burn victim.
Yeah, they said, I mean, if Mitch was telling the truth and whatever that was.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I do think that Mitch was telling the truth, honestly.
In whatever that sequence was.
Yeah.
You think maybe he lost it near the end when he was leaving?
Yeah, I think so.
And
I think that's why he was like...
Went into some type of psych...
Yeah. Psychiatric, a psychiatric break.
Maybe he attacked Mitch and then fled. Yeah.
I mean, I also think that it's very possible that the entity actually did that, but it made Mitch and him both think that that's not what happened. Like, what happened to Mitch and what happened to him are like, they both exist at the same time.
It doesn't have full ownership over either of them, so what do? You fuck with both of them. If this was Zach, I couldn't tell. He would have been so much older now, anyway. But whoever it was, they looked fit for an intensive care unit, not a guest bedroom. Was Paul keeping them here as a guest to ward off the intruder? I couldn't imagine anyone in their right mind agreeing to this willingly. I was about to turn back when, out in the hallway, the front door clicked open and a light flicked on. Paul was back. I cast my view around the room, desperately searching for a place to hide, when the man on the bed's eyes snapped open. Cold, blue eyes, strikingly similar to Paul's. He was looking straight at me, wide and fearful. Thudding footsteps getting closer, and without thinking, I clambered beneath the bed and pulled my cast leg in behind me. Cramped between tangled wires and green metal crates, I hid. The footsteps stopped in the doorway. The bedroom light flicked on.
How did you open this?
Paul's voice reverberated into the room. No response.
What's wrong?
Again, no audible response. Paul huffed, flicked the light off, pulled the door shut, leaving me alone with the burn victim. The burn victim, I'm pretty sure, was Paul. Or at least some version of him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Okay. So is the implication that
it
the
has
entity
to, like,
did
keep...
indeed... Right. Like, it did replace him, but
It has to, like, keep him alive in order to...
Yeah.
Feed off
in order
of it.
to continue, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, why, though?
That's
like,
where
what
I'm
is the
at.
getting
I'm at,
from
like...
it? Yeah.
In my head, I'm rationalizing now because I'm like, man, I liked this story more when it was just a creepy fucking ghost in someone's basement.
Yeah, now it's just getting a little too four-dimensional for me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's a way to say it, but it's also just getting more... messy?
Like, convoluted.
Yeah, convoluted.
It's just so complicated.
I liked... Here's what I'll say about that last part. I liked when Mitch was kind of monologuing. And he was like, yeah, you're fucked. You know, you have been since you broke the coat rack. This thing is just gonna be malicious and evil to you from this point forward. I was really hoping that we were gonna get some breadth from Paul.
Yeah, me too.
From that point forward. I was hoping he would just go back home and the monster shit would start back up again.
Yeah.
But I can't... I'm not disappointed. The ending is gonna have to stick some type of fucking acrobatic landing for me to not be disappointed, but I will say that the promise of this story is kind of wavering a little bit for me. Like, I liked it more when it was a timed bomb that we knew was gonna go off.
Yeah, they're losing me a little bit, honestly. Like, they're losing me.
I don't hate it. It's still written really well. It's very suspenseful. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I, we like emotional. We like relation. We like empathy.
I do.
You know, I don't think any of us is resonated in this story at all, unfortunately.
No, not really, but I'm not like... I still...
You said it earlier. You said, like, we could reserve judgment, you know.
Yeah, I'm reserving judgment for now. I'm just like... I'm not... They were starting to lose... Honestly, the last episode we did together, by the end of the episode, they were starting to lose me, and they have continued to lose me. I enjoyed the Mitch part. That was nasty. I liked that. That was good. That was fucked up. That was fun. Yeah. But, like, we're getting...
But both of my parts this episode have been convoluted as fuck.
Right, like, we're almost 100 pages into this story.
With only 40 pages left.
Yeah, and, like, I feel no closer to understanding where this is going.
But I mean, is that not in line with what Mitch said? That we're not going to understand this?
It is, which is, like, fine.
That's
but
fine, but
it's gone.
It's towed this line of getting us to think a certain way this entire time. That now I'm disappointed that we don't have a better understanding. You could go ahead and read this next part. It's not as long.
Okay. 12. I recommend measuring the distance from him to the furthest corner of the house. Calculate how long it will take him to reach you. Set up your bedroom as far away as possible. Once established, do not move your bed. You must sleep there from now on.
Which he's failed like multiple times. Why are you reminding
Yeah, he's
this?
already... We're not doing
Why are
a
you
great
reminding
job.
of us this now?
Yeah.
Okay.
The rhythmic beat of the heart monitor kept me from falling asleep. All the while, I could hear Paul mulling about the house, doing God knows what at 4 in the morning. This went on for about an hour until finally silence. Silence and early morning birds chirping awake outside. It was still dark out, but the sun is rising. So you have spent another night not at your
somewhere
house.
else. Yeah. Maybe that's
Another
where
10...
the
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Although
where the hallucinations this last time came from when he went to Mitch's place. Maybe he was there too late.
Yeah, maybe. Although I'm kind of curious because like he didn't technically sleep.
No, and
so,
I'm using the term sleep like
well that's my question, right?
Ears, like, because like, do you actually have? It doesn't matter what time of day. You know, it could be 4 in the
like, can you
afternoon,
just not sleep anywhere else, or is it like a nighttime thing? Like, is it a sleep thing or a nighttime thing? We don't know. It's a surprise, I guess.
Because one of the rules said don't spend the night anywhere else.
Yes.
But now we're thinking that just even sleeping somewhere else is kind of fucked.
It's kind of a problem, yeah. Another 10 minutes went by until I decided it was safe to leave. Climbing out from underneath the bed, I pushed up to standing. Relief poured through my sore, cramped body. I looked back. The man on the bed was asleep, eyes closed. Of course, maybe it wasn't Paul, but the resemblance, even through the gruesome scars, was striking. That, and the fact one version of Paul supposedly burned to death. At this point, who else would it be? I needed a photo just in case. I pulled out my phone, and the battery was dead, of course. Tucking my phone away, I turned back and staggered across the room. I placed my ear against the door. I listened. The low hum of the fridge, the occasional drip of a leaky faucet. Okay. I pushed open the door and peered out. Somehow the hallway was darker than before. Empty, as far as I could tell. I crept out and pushed the door shut behind me. Shimmying against the wall, I made my way towards the entrance, almost free. Almost home. Pushing off the wall, I stumbled into the foyer and thumped into the front door. A reverberating thud echoed across the house. Fuck. Dread hung in the air as I braced for a response, but nothing came. Only more silence. Relieved, I turned the knob, and fucking locked from the outside. I pulled my switchblade out and stuck it into the frame, sliding it forward. Behind me, a door clicked open. I looked back over my shoulder. It was the door to the room of Paul's burnt up doppelganger. Fuck this. I turned back to the door and...
Brandon?
Voice from the left. I snapped to look. Only the darkened living room. Struggling to pull a knife out from the door, I squinted into the shadows. In the far corner by a draped shut window, a silhouette seated on the couch.
Are you okay?
The familiar voice from the darkness echoed for a moment, almost sounding like my father. Someone rose to standing and stepped into a beam of pale moonlight. It was Paul, old blue eyes filled with confused disappointment. His eyes glanced to the wedged knife gripped in my hand, then back to me.
Mitch called.
He said, trying to stay calm, acting like nothing bad was happening, even though it clearly was.
He's worried about you.
He took a careful step forward. I flinched, pulled, yanked the knife out from the door frame. Paul gently raised a hand.
We're okay.
He stepped back.
No need for that. Full disclosure, I've got a 9mm sitting on the table there.
He glanced down to his left. A black finished handgun sat on top of the books.
But there's no reason for any of that, right?
He nodded slightly as if to answer his own question. I lowered the knife, but I didn't put it away. Maybe seeing an incomprehensible monster crawl out through Mitch's mouth gave me a few trust issues.
Mitch said you were really distressed last night. Said you broke down his door and ran away in a panic?
I shook my head, painfully aware of how crazy I must have looked.
It's okay, Brandon. We're not pressing charges or anything like that. We're worried about you. Have you been sleeping?
I chuckled bitterly, turned back towards the door, and stuck the knife back into the door frame. I was done playing this stupid game. In my peripherals, Paul stepped over to the table, crouched down, picked up the gun, and tucked it in the back of his waist loop.
Brandon,
said Paul, again sounding oddly similar to my late father, the same way Dad sounded knocking on my bedroom door after Zach died.
you're letting this get to you. I know what it's like. Trust me. I know better than most.
I turned to look at him again. Why is your door locked from the outside? Paul shook his head.
It's not.
I grabbed the handle and turned it to show. The door popped open and the wedge knife clattered to the floor. I blinked in confusion, shrugged, held the door frame, and...
I'm not letting you go.
I stopped. It said Paul. It sounded more like pleading than a threat. I stopped and looked back towards him, down at the gun. You gonna shoot me?
We're gonna wait here until the help comes.
Help is in cops?
They're gonna bring you to a hospital. Get you some help.
Psych ward.
They're not like the movies, trust me. I've been to more than a few.
I scoffed, a growing sense of bitter spite welling up in my throat. All the confusion, all the questions, all the vagueness boiled into a twisting mass of rage.
Who's in the fucking... Oh, sorry, that's your line.
Who's in the fucking room? I'll glance down the hallway.
An old friend.
I grit my teeth. An old friend burned to shit that just happens to look exactly like you?
He was injured in the war, Brandon. I'm his caretaker.
I shook my head in disbelief. Paul just had an answer for everything. You expect me to buy that? It's using you. I can see that in your eyes.
Then why am I trying to help you?
I opened my mouth to respond, but stopped short, as if the insanity of my own thoughts was too strange to even speak aloud, but I knew he was lying. I fucking knew it. Somehow, the version of Paul who burnt alive in the car wreck was also the one down in the room down the hallway. I didn't know how, I didn't know why, but I knew it was true.
Look, Brandon, nothing I say right now is going to convince you of anything. And that's okay. But I need you to understand. This thing is fucking with you right now.
It's all in my head, right?
No. Some of it is real. It has to be. I know. Some things happen to me that I can't explain, but that doesn't matter anymore. I put that aside and pretended it wasn't real.
Good for you, I said, squatting down and picking the knife back up. I turned around for the door and Paul drew his gun. He didn't aim at me, but he looked ready to fire. You're not gonna shoot me.
You're not gonna get far with that leg.
He had a point there.
Brandon, you've broken and entered with a deadly weapon, but I'm on your side here. Even Mitch is on your side.
I huffed, stepped back away from the door, and pulled it shut. Paul relaxed and tucked away his pistol. A long stretch of silence. Do you actually believe you're in control right now?
What?
It's using you. I can see it in your eyes. Do you know it? Or do you think you're still you? Paul, at a loss for words, smiled sadly, turned around, stepped back to the couch, and I lurched forward, pushing open the front door with one smooth motion. Scrambling onto my front lawn, red and blue lights swept across the street ahead. I pushed up to my feet, staggering uselessly across the yard.
Brandon!
Paul called after me, his voice filled with protective concern. Cop cruiser skid to a stop on the street in front of me. Out from the passenger seat, a young cop whipped out, took cover behind the door, and drew a weapon.
Get on the ground!
Screamed, gun pointing directly at me. I just stood there, knife in hand, in shock, staring down the barrel of a handgun.
Drop the weapon!
I looked back over my shoulder at Paul, his face was filled with fear for my safety. I knew I could see it in his eyes. Something slammed into me from the side. A burly cop tackled me into the dirt, and knife sailed from my hand and flew through the air. My head was pushed onto wet soil and grass. I was pinned down. Sudden realization flooded through me. This meant I would be dragged away to a psych ward, forced to do their tests, forced to take medication, sleeping away from home, breaking the cardinal rule again and again and again. The intruder gaining more and more influence with every passing night I spent away from home. A sense of overwhelming dread swarmed through me. With a burst of surprising strength, I kicked and swiped and flailed, somehow shoving the heavyset cop off of me. I scrambled, half crawling, half running, a useless attempt. The second cop hauled off the street towards me and sidewalled me back into the ground, both of them pinning me down now, dead grass and clumps of dirt filling my mouth, but I didn't give up. I kept fighting. This was life or death. I needed to escape. I kept pushing, struggling.
Be careful with him.
Paul's muffled voice cried out, and a heavy blow cracked across the back of my head in darkness. I woke in the head of something not human, but not the intruder either. An animal, a strange and bizarre sensory experience to say the least. 4 legs, a perspective on the world nearly impossible to explain. Was it a mountain lion? Was it a bear? I didn't know. But I was in a familiar forest, staring down a straight hiking trail. Evening sunlight cut down through the trees above, speckling the snow-covered path with pockets of swaying light. And I saw myself ahead on the path. I was dressed for hiking, looking slightly older now, leg fully healed, oblivious to the creature in front of me. The new version of me suddenly froze, staring directly towards me now, his eyes filled with terror. He turned to run. Darkness. I woke in a room with greenish walls, cold fluorescent light cast over all. My one arm was handcuffed to a bed railing. The room was unfamiliar, but I knew exactly where I was. Emergency room, psych ward. Fuck.
That is definitely a turn I did not expect for the story going into the last
I agree.
the last part. I can't for the life of me see how he's gonna get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it too much for me to tell you that I've absolutely been in a situation like this? I mean, minus the handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
Admitting yourself in this situation, it's almost like a surveyed house arrest outside of your house. In my head, the only way to get out of a situation like that is to pretend that everything is okay and be like, hey, everyone, I'm fine. Look. Take what meds they give you. Mind your P's and Q's. Be nice to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
One flew over the cuckoo's nest, this bitch.
Literally.
I don't know. It's a really weird fucking place for the story to go. I mean, with how, I mean, I guess I can't really say that when even part 2 that we read, starting in like chapter 5 or 6, like even in that chapter it was like everyone's gone crazy. My dad went crazy. He was in and out of places. He was in AA. He was out of AA. He was bettering himself. He took meds, the right meds. They made a point to say that multiple times. I don't know. Is this entire thing a fucking metaphor? Or are we being Shutter Island?
I think it might be both, maybe. Like, it is a metaphor, but also
it's Shutter Island.
Shutter Island, yeah. But also it's Shutter Island, and things have been fucked now.
We don't know enough about Brandon or his past to assume that he hadn't had mental issues this entire time. He definitely said some stuff like, my family's dead, my friends are dead, I don't have anything, which could come from a
Right.
checkered past, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it definitely sounds like he's been on some fuck shit in the past, but we don't know what it means.
it's an assumption. Um, Here's a question, and maybe you can indulge me.
I'll indulge. I've been known to indulge.
You have been. If this story has a happy ending, are you going to be disappointed?
I don't know.
Or depend contextually dependent on how it ends, if it ends happy, will you be
I
like, oh,
do
okay?
see, I like a happy ending personally, but
I think
in this
realistically in
case,
this situation, I just don't see it.
I don't either. That's my
Because to
thing.
answer
Like
my
my
own
thing is
question,
like the
if we get a
way
happy ending now, contextually, I'm going to be like, what fucking acrobats? Like, I
Mhm.
said it earlier, like, what fucking acrobatics are you like, what hoops are you jumping through to align
Right.
this, to make
And
this make
that's my
sense?
thing though, is that like I'm getting a lot of exposition. I'm getting a lot of things kind of handed to me very neatly, but the stuff they're handing to me is confusing, which I think is what's really getting me.
Yeah, that it
Because like
doesn't
I
actually
can
have anything to do with the plot.
yeah, like I can deal with like convoluted concepts and like, layers of symbolism and
Hallucination versus
metaphors and all of
metaphor.
that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I'm down. I can do that. But like we keep flipping wildly back and forth between,
He went
sorry, I'm
from
getting tired.
being medically,
Hmm.
physically unstable to now being mentally
Hmm.
unstable in the course of like 24
Yeah.
hours. I just think he's had a
Yeah.
rough week. And I think he could look at whatever nurse and
Yeah.
whatever institution he's in and just be like, listen, let me walk you
Yeah.
through my week. This dude and his son have been harassing me. There's a tunnel in my fucking
Hmm.
basement. They've been coming into my house. They
Hmm.
blew my door off its fucking hinges. Get your cops in. Let Howie show you around. He'll be able to speak
Hmm.
to how unstable I've been or the lack of sleep I've had, whatever. I think
Yeah.
there's a process here that I will go ahead and say is boring. I don't want to have to read that. I have a feeling we might have to read something like that. I don't
Hmm.
care for it. I don't want realism in my ghost stories. Not this kind of realism, not the dull procedural kind of,
Hmm.
side of it. Um
Yeah.
Again, I'm not disappointed.
No, I'm
I
not
don't think I'm
feeling.
unhappy with where the story is going. I'm struggling. I ask myself the same question.
Hmm.
Would I be disappointed if this ended happily? No, but it's going to have to make fucking sense. If I have even a
Yeah,
single question when this story ends, I'm going to feel like time was wasted elsewhere. You know what I mean?
that's my thing. It's like
How are we? Yeah,
I'm
we're
not
treading
like
water right now.
I'm not against, like I said, I'm gonna withhold my judgment until the story is over. But right now it feels like there is so much exposition and so much explaining, and then they just keep adding layers like insanity. So
Hmm.
I'm just it's like the whiplash is kind of
When the
like
insanity happened, I
confusing
was
me.
like, is this. So, Shutter Island was the best example I could think of, but I'm trying to
Hmm.
think of maybe a better one. Um,
It's
I mean,
starting to
Shutter
give like
Island was just one of
Inception or
those
like
examples where it's
timelines.
like this guy gets put into a situation and he's like, everything around me doesn't make sense. What the fuck? And then very
Yeah,
slowly you
exactly.
start to say, like, oh no, the world around you is fucked because of you. So you're the
Hmm.
fucked one. And then it clicks and then you're
Right.
like, oh, okay. And is that what we're in?
It feels like it, honestly.
Yeah,
because
that's
I
where I'm
just
at, and I didn't love Shutter Island on the first view either. You know,
yeah.
it took me a couple watches to be like, oh, this is actually pretty good.
Hmm.
For
Yeah,
the first
I
time I
liked
saw it,
it,
I
and
was
I
like, eh.
mean, I will say I'm not disappointed yet. I'm gonna be disappointed if it is like an it's all a dream thing.
Oh yeah, fuck
I'm
that.
I'm I'm
Fuck
gonna be
that.
annoyed if
If
that's where it's
if the
going.
monster is the trauma we've made along the way, you could go fuck itself.
I'm gonna be a little cranky about that
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm with you on that one. I'll set the boat on fire for sure.
because I don't like it. But we'll
No,
see. I guess we're gonna have to
the
figure it
journey
out.
being the friends we made along the way is what every One Piece fan is neglecting to tell themselves and has been telling
Hmm.
themselves over the last 27 years.
The real One Piece is the friends we made along the way.
I mean, I sure as fuck hope it's not, for all of their sakes, because I'm not a fan. But, um, for something like Lord of the Rings, that makes sense because every single member of the Fellowship was instrumental
Hmm.
in taking down different aspects of evil all at the same
It's
time.
true.
That is a situation where the true magic is the friends we made along the way. Um, I don't
Which I'm cool with.
I don't like the idea of the coat rack is the trauma we made along the way.
Along the
Like,
way, yeah, because it's too.
it's a
I don't
cop
know.
out, frankly.
It is. It's a cop out. It feels, and it's just like overdone. It feels like we went all this way to
Yeah.
get to like not go anywhere.
Yeah, just,
You know what I mean?
be like anyone else, cut yourself a couple times, get over it. What is this, the early 2000s?
Hmm.
I didn't want to go
Yeah,
there, but
everybody
I
was
felt the
doing.
need to, you know.
Yeah, but everybody was doing that
Everyone
then.
was doing it. We all
Everyone
expressed
was
ourselves
doing it.
that way.
All the cool kids are
I'm
doing
still
it.
wearing a
You know
black
what's
hoodie.
really You know what's really funny though is that when I was a kid, I feel like by the time I got into school and everything, everybody was like freaking out about people cutting themselves, and I didn't know like anybody that actually did it, but everybody was like, "Don't do it." Kind of like with the like Dare, where they're like, "Don't take drugs from strangers," and I was like, "Okay." I
I don't
mean,
even
I
know any
guess
strangers. Um,
I don't know any strangers, but okay. And then they're like, "Don't cut yourself. Don't do it," and I was like, "Okay,
uh,
I guess."
there's a lot I could say that I'm not going to.
They kept being
Let's
like,
just
people
say
who cut
you and I
themselves do
had
it for
different
attention.
experiences.
I mean, listen, they would be like, if you cut yourself, it's for attention. And I would be like, I mean, yeah.
Oh no, 100% it
Uh,
absolutely was, but it was also a way for
yeah.
people to exert pressures they could not exert through any other means. Only like 5 to 6 years later would I realize that substance abuse was 100% the way to excise those feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll get you.
If someone earlier had told me weed can fix all of these problems, I would have been like, yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean,
And
listen,
I've been smoking
I
ever
think that,
since.
yeah, and you know what?
In as little
Good for
as 3
you.
years, you too can be stoned and numb to the world.
And then you'll be happy. Yay.
Don't we know it?
This was,
Welcome to Lots of Pasta. This is the podcast where we
welcome to
read
lots of
we read stories we found on the internet to take a break from whatever daily meaningless reality we exist within, and we smoke weed while doing it because it's
we
fun.
do.
Come on.
It is.
Get with the program.
It is.
It's episode
And
like
also,
298 or some shit. I shouldn't have
get
to
it together.
explain this.
Get it together. Wait, is this where I tell you? Wait, okay, hold on. Wait, what did they
Uh-huh.
say? I'm like, hey, if you don't do drugs, I'll kill you. I can be like that freak that the Dare Lion told me to watch out for. I'm like, I
Yeah.
have a fucking gun. If you don't do this weed right now, I'm gonna
Be
shoot
be
you
the
with it.
person Dare warned you about. Dare people to do drugs.
Be the guy who gives kindergartners
I mean, it's medicine
crack
now. I
cocaine.
can't even facetiously, I can't pretend that it doesn't like improve people now.
No, it really does. It's
It
one of
really
the only. I
does.
mean,
No, I was being
I have
serious
sleep
when I said in as
PTSD.
little as 3 years I smoked weed for the first time and it fixed like almost all of my mental problems.
No, I literally I have CPTSD and advanced insomnia as a result of that. And one of the only things that consistently helps me actually go the fuck to sleep and be a normal person
Is weed, yeah. Weed did not fix my insomnia until I was about 20 something. I want to say like 23, 24, but
weirdly, it definitely seems to work better the older I get, because it didn't work like that at first.
I think it's because I've stopped having fun being high now. I think medicinally speaking, it just my tolerance. You grow a tolerance after like 15 or 16 years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It don't hit the same anymore.
Yeah, I definitely... What? You have my treat.
What was brought to you now?
You want to eat that?
You're always giving something fun while we're recording. What is it now?
It's a cinnamon donut
Fuck yeah, dude.
thing. Like
Hell
a chip.
yeah.
It's so good.
Hell
it's
yeah.
like a Taco Bell cinnamon twists, but if it was in a bag.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually gonna go and eat the fuck out of those now.
All right, before we log off real quick, give me a short expectation for where you think this next chapter can go, or where you would like it to go.
I think that
because we're getting on our
Paul
last
and
part.
Mitch...
This is the penultimate. We're entering the finale. We have one more part to go, 30 some pages. What do you want?
I think Paul and Mitch are gonna lull Brandon into a false sense of security and make him feel like everything's fine and like he was just freaking out too much, and that they're like normal and good, and then the two entities. Yeah, and then two entities are gonna crawl out of both of their mouths and then like all punch and just start swinging on Brandon and just like punch him until he dies.
Turn him into a coat rack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I'd actually like that. If that actually happened, if we get if there are 4 parts left in this story, which I think there are only 2 or 3, I just think they're long. If there are however many parts left, I would love if 20 of the 30 pages are procedural drama where they convince Brandon to get sober and to, go on medication and to get out of the hospital, and that they'll take care of him, and he's constantly questioning things but slowly getting won over by them. And then there's like 5 pages interim where he's like, and I'm better now and everything's great, and then the last 5 pages are like monsters crawl up out of the corpses of everyone around him and they all just fucking eviscerate him. Then I would be really into it. If we got a drag me to hell ending, then I'm on board.
I mean, that's what I think. That's kind of what I think, at least. Like, I really think that's where this is going. I think it's going to be a drag me to hell bit, honestly. I
You've
really
been fucked this entire time. I mean, I did like that line drop. I liked the line drop in the last part where he's like, I didn't tell Paul about the coat rack. Like, yep. I liked that one. That one was good. That's an M. Night Shyamalan, what a twist for you.
There's something fucked up happening there.
And then the one this time is... The line I liked the most in this chapter was, you've been fucked since you broke the coat rack. I was just trying to keep you calm.
Yeah, that was very good.
Which I'm now agreeing with you that did actually happen, and that he bugged and ran out of there when he got to the door.
Yeah, I gotta delay the inevitable.
Yeah. In which case, if he does get out of this now, after that's been said, I'm gonna be doubly as upset.
I'm only gonna be cool with it if he gets out of it because he just does something absolutely fucking unhinged that neither of them thought to do.
Yeah, that's fair. If he rolls like a nat 20 on some con saving throws,
Yeah. And just gives them the business, that I would think that I would be down for. And I personally do love an American solution to like supernatural things where they just pull out a fucking gun
and I pull out my gun. The R. Kelly
And
answer
then,
to everything.
Yeah, or like the fucking what is it? It's like there's like a Buffy episode where this evil demon manifests and it's like no weapon built by man can kill me, and then she pulls out a fucking bazooka or something and is like, well, weapons have changed a lot in
Yeah.
2000 years. It just fucking
And
blows
just
him away.
blows him up. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
If a monster
I do
crawls out
too.
of Paul and he's like, you can't defeat me, I'm in your mind, and he's like, fuck my mind, and just shoots Paul.
He just shoots him in the head. Yeah, that would be so funny.
That would
He's
be
like,
cool.
you don't want to shoot your friend, do
Light,
you? And then he's
the
just
coat
like, yeah,
rack
I do,
lights
and
on
then
fire
blows
and starts screaming. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fun.
And then everything was fine and it was great. The end.
And we blew them up. Yay! Five Nights at Freddy's, 6 a.m., like children cheering.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the meme of today's episode? Is it the syndrome, you dense motherfucker?
Yes, it has to be.
Is
That
that
made
how
me
we
laugh
feel
so
about all
much.
of this?
Honestly, so far, yes, because now it
He
feels like
didn't
the story
start
is calling
asking
me
good
the
questions until like the last part, so I am
Yeah.
in agreement with that.
I feel like the story is calling me the dense motherfucker, and that's why it's handing me all of the exposition so clearly.
No, that's not it. You and I have expectations. You and I have a history. We read things a certain way. We expect things to move in a certain beat, a certain rhythm.
Yes.
This has been different. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's different. I'm not
Very
mad.
different.
I'm just disappointed.
Me neither, man.
All right.
Me
Well,
neither.
We'll be back to finish this.
We sure will. And for now, I'm gonna go eat some fucking cinnamon sugar puff thingies.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah, dude.